What it is, what it do. We got another video coming to you. This one is another woman trying to get over on the system, trying to keep her child support, trying to keep the money she's getting, and the husband obviously has been paying for years and trying to get his child support down. But the woman, of course, didn't disclose all her information when she should have. So watch this one, man.
Amy Marlott versus Robert Marlott. Sure, this is your objection to a child support recommendation, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, and what are your objections?
Well, in the first hearing, I had no knowledge of friend of the court or how it worked, so I just kind of didn't argue anything at that first hearing, not knowing what the consequences could be. So, on a typical week, he goes to school in Gaylord. I live in Atlanta. On a typical week, I have him Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was presented in the previous hearing that Amy has him 2/3 of the time, which would be 66%. But 3 days out of 7 is 57%. Our agreement when we divorced was always 50-50 custody, 50-50 time with him. Because she moved him to school in Gaylord, of course, that makes it difficult for me. So, in order to make up for time lost during the school year, he's supposed to be at my house more in summer. So that's how we deal with trying to make it a 50-50 time split. So the 2/3 is incorrect, basically.
So you have him you have 3 days every week during the school year?
Yes, I might add, I drive 180 miles because I have to make 3 trips to Gaylord. He usually has a practice of some sort, whether it's baseball, basketball, one of the days.
Okay, and how was this last summer handled as far as parenting time?
Well, it was made a little bit difficult by Amy because when he wasn't having a practice or something, it seemed like something would always come up, like the school was offering a weightlifting class 3 days a week, so he goes there for like 20 minutes, and kind of like she was requiring me to drive him over there for a 20-30 minute workout.
So my question was, how many overnights do you think you got last summer?
Well, whenever it worked out, he was at my house more during the week. Yes.
I don't know what that is. So how many nights, how often do you think he was at your house over the summer?
Well, usually 2 or 3 weeks, so that'd be, well, actually a little more. It'd probably be closer to 4 during the summer. There were weekends where he would have a baseball tournament or something, and she always took him to those. But I think you could safely say, so 3-4 times a month, 12. Well, if we're calling the summer June, July, August, I would say like 45 to 50 days.
All right. Ms. Rosen, what are your thoughts on what the schedule looks like as far as overnights?
So of the 365 days in the year, and forecasting the remainder of this year, which we have a couple weeks left, Bob has had and will get to 120 overnights of the 365. As far as the summer, June, July, and August, in June, he had him overnight 3 times. In July, he had him overnight 16. And then in August, he had him overnight 12.
What's currently happening on a weekly schedule? He indicates he has 3 overnights a week during the school year. Is that what you guys are doing?
So what changes are Donald's athletics. And so when he has weekend tournaments, whether it be basketball or baseball, I have been the parent that is taking him to the tournaments and handling those arrangements. So that affects the weekend.
You're the one who moved. Like, how is that hard to understand? You moved further away, so now he would have to drive an hour and a half or whatever it would be to bring his kid to a baseball game or a practice that's 20 minutes. How does that make sense?
For October and November, I would say pretty consistently, because he didn't have any weekend events, he was at Bob's the 3 nights that Bob mentioned. But it changes a lot. January of last year, Bob had him 5 overnights. January and February, Donald will probably have tournaments every weekend. And so that's where things get affected. I have the numbers for the full year if you want me to run through them.
Well, you indicate that it's about at 120 for this year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Marlott, anything else you wish to say as far as the overnights are concerned?
Well, I do. These tournaments she mentions, I'm never given a schedule, offered to take him myself. This is where we run into trouble. She just takes him, and then, she has no problem infringing on what I would consider my time. So moving forward, I'm going to make sure it's 50%. And if it isn't, then we will take some action on that.
What does your
But-
custody agreement say, if you know, sir?
50-50, everything.
Well, what does your parenting time arrangement say?
Everything was 50-50 when we divorced.
All right, so I'm looking at a judgment of divorce. Have you guys ever altered the terms as far as the judgment of divorce when it comes to custody?
No.
All right, so I do see, I guess, in that it indicated parenting time is as the parties agree. And then back here, looks like in September, we also indicated that parenting time is as the parties agree. So the difficulty when that's the language is there's nothing specific, which is kind of why we discussed going with that 2/3 last time we were here, as far as the overnights were concerned. In the
Right.
judgment itself doesn't say, it says you gotta have joint custody, but joint custody doesn't always mean necessarily 100% 50-50 as far as overnights. It did indicate on the judgment to go with at 182.5, but then we altered that in September. So when there's not a specific schedule, the court has to look at what is the calculation of what has been going on. And it does sound like Ms. Rosen has kept some records on what has been going on. And I know when we were here before, we kind of went with that figure.
Well, I'm not sure how she came up with her records, but I have kept a record. Well, since I realized we were going to do this, I have the last 3 months. And it backs up what I'm saying, that I have him more than the 2/3. It actually ends up being, if you just kind of went with the 3 days out of 7, it kind of averages out that's what it is on my schedule. That is from when we started this in September through the end of the year, based on what has been planned for the holiday.
And then
And
she
the
had
other-
said that for summer you had about 31 overnights. You thought about 45. Did you have anything that shows the number of overnights you had in the summer?
I don't have anything written down. I wasn't planning on doing this, so I really only started from the time when we started this proceeding. So if she's making stuff up previous to that, I can't speak to that. But
And then as to the issue, what would you like to say on that?
which issue?
The income, you also objected based on an income issue, is that correct?
Yeah, I do object to that because I know that she has had a job at a restaurant in Boyne City within the past 3 years, which they took my income and
Let me quickly just stop there before I finish the rest. But that's what's hard, man. Especially when she works at a restaurant, she can put down on her thing she's making $3.75 an hour, and she works 20, 30 hours a week. Maybe put in her credit card tips, but she doesn't need to put in her cash tips. And that's what gets sketchy. Mine did the same thing, and it makes their income look lower than it is. But in this case, it doesn't look like she put hers in at all. So let's keep listening.
basically divided it by 3 over those 3 years. And what I was told by the FOC lady, or the caseworker, I guess you'd call her, she said that it was her understanding that Amy had quit the job, and so that they didn't include that income in her numbers. because they wanted it to be accurate. Well, I was a sole proprietor in my business, and now I'm an LLC acting as an S corp, so I receive a paycheck weekly. I don't, so there's no debating what I'm bringing home per week. And if you were to just take my numbers, I don't know if you have that sheet. I put the numbers on there. So it seemed like gross income is what they were wanting to look at. She came up with 8520.37 for my gross, but my weekly is 1762.11, which if you were to divide that out, a normal 4-week, 4-pay month, it turns out to be 7,048. Or if you were to average the whole year, you're about 76. So it's about $1,000 difference from what she was calculating. Which,
When did you,
you know,
make that change in your employment?
October 1st was the start of it.
All right. Do you receive any other benefits other than the weekly paycheck?
No, that's my income right there.
So if the company makes a profit, that's not your company?
It is my company, yes.
All right. So if there's a profit, do you then get some other benefit at the end of the year, or where does any profit go?
Well, for now, it goes into the business. It's relatively new, so I'm not sure how all that will be handled in the future. I also have something I didn't find out about until Saturday was the insurance calculation, which is also incorrect.
All right. What's incorrect about the insurance calculation?
Well, I was looking into getting, because I haven't even had health insurance in the last couple.
So this is the tough part. Seems like he obviously has a business, and whatever money was coming in was probably different every week or every month. He was getting a different amount of money, and they probably took an average of that and made that his child support or whatever it would be. He probably figured that out and decided to turn it into an LLC, and now he gets a paycheck. So he's just an employee, and that way every paycheck is the same. This is the calculations, and it's done by that. There are ways to get around that. I'm surprised he pays himself that much, because he could have lowered it and made it look like he's really not making that much money. You can pretty much expense your life off of your business. You're driving somewhere, you can use your gas, you can use the card for food, saying it's a business expense. You rarely have to use your personal money if you own a business. And yeah, it sounds like he's still making, $1,700 a week or a month. No, a week, and then he's making like $7,000 a month or something like that.
Years. So I was looking into getting my own policy, which I did. And I was just in conversation with the insurance agent. I told her about this situation, where they want me to pay 65% of Donald's health care. So I gave her the number. They listed $982 as their monthly, what they pay per month. And then when they calculated Donald's portion of it, they just divided it by 3, which came out to $327, and then took 65% of that, which is $213. And the insurance agent said, no way that you could insure, that it costs the same to insure a 13-year-old kid who's healthy, the same rate at, 50-year-old adults. So I don't believe.
She lied to the court? No, you're not saying.
That's accurate. However, she told me she took it off of the taxes. I don't know what she looked at, but what I would like to propose is I would like to just put him on my policy, and I'll pay for all of his health insurance.
All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
Only that, again, I would make that offer just to pay for all of his health insurance, and they wouldn't have to contribute anything. The only caveat is I have to claim him on my taxes, and I would be willing to split the child care credit with Amy. That would be no problem. Typically, we've been we've been alternating years that we claim him. Like this coming tax season, she will be claiming him. So next year is my year to claim him. But moving forward, if I can just put him on my insurance policy and claim him on my taxes, I'm happy to split whatever the child care. I think it's about $2,000. So I would split that with her.
Ms. Rosen?
Yeah, first I'd like to go back to the overnights. Bob is painting me in a picture as if I'm dictating Donald's extra. Pardon?
We don't need to go back to the overnights. So I give you both a chance to make your arguments there. So let's go to the income issue. He indicated that you have some income that was not included. What would you like to say regarding that?
Yeah, I'm not employed at by Magnum Hospitality or Cafe Sante. I haven't been for approximately 7 months, and I work full time at Bliss Salon and Spa 5 to 6 days a week. When I started at Bliss, I did take that job because I didn't have. I did take the Cafe Sante job in order to help supplement my income. I'm now full time at Bliss, and so it just didn't make sense for me to continue driving to Boyne. So I don't work there.
Okay. And then as to healthcare, what would you like to say regarding that?
I think it's a bigger conversation. I would like to know what type of insurance.
See, it's not a bigger conversation. He's willing to take on the child to put him on his insurance, pay for it fully, and then you guys split every year the taxes. Pretty simple, but of course she wants to make a thing out of it.
That he's proposing, what the policy entails, what the deductible is, what the copays are, all those things. We've carried health insurance on Donald for 5 years. And so, it's just a surprise to me that here today, Bob wants to now carry health insurance on Donald. Also we dental on Donald. So I'm curious if Bob is proposing dental as well. I did submit all the documents with regard to our health insurance to friend of the court. And
on January 1st, we're starting a 4-week chair workout challenge for beginners over 50.
So they have numbers.
Do you know if that breaks down individually what each's premium is, or is it just shows what the total is for all the people on the policy?
I'm sure that it breaks down individually. I would have to get that breakdown.
Okay. Friend of the court, anything you'd like to say regarding these matters?
Just that we had taken the information about insurance directly from her tax information she provided to us.
Okay.
That is included in the folder up there. So I do feel that it is probably accurate.
You think it costs the same to insure a 13-year-old kid as a 50-year-old adult?
All right, so I'm not sure where your question is directed, but we'll take a look to see if we have a breakdown that is separate. I'll let front of the court do that after we are done with the hearing. All right, anything else you want to say, sir?
Just on the insurance thing again, like, I'm not sure why she would worry about, like, what I'm offering is to pay for all of it. I'm not asking her to pay 35% or any of it. So I don't really know what matters what the copay is, because that would be my responsibility.
All right, so heard from both parties on the objection. The first is the overnights. I am going to deny a change in overnights. We were at a prior hearing where there was discussion to go with about 2/3. Testimony from Mr. Marlott is recently he's been getting typically 3 overnights a week during the school year. But there have been weekends where he doesn't get his overnights and mom takes the child to some type of events. The summer, really, I find Mr. Marlott's testimony more of a guess and is vague as to how many overnights he actually had in the summer. Ms. Rosen indicated she had kept track, and it was on pace for that 120, which we had calculated previously. So without additional proof, I am going to deny the objection as to the overnights and keep the overnights at the calculated 120.5. Again, as indicated, when the order simply says parenting time as the parties agree, then it does make it more difficult to get overnights. The party has a right to seek a specific parenting time schedule, which then makes the overnight calculation certainly much easier. As to the income, based on the statements of Ms. Rosen of not working that job anymore and maintaining full-time employment, I would not add that to her support amount. Mr. Marlott has indicated he has changed the way the business is operated now, changing from a sole proprietor to an LLC operating as an S Corp, and he's getting a paycheck. This is a new arrangement, and certainly there are potential other income that could be calculated if that is his corporation, which it appears it is. So there may be other benefits received, and as a new corporation, so as he indicated, he's not sure ultimately what all those tax benefits and revenue are going to look like, as he has not gone through that cycle yet with the new way the business is organized. So given that that is a new matter with some inconsistency at this point, I would also deny the objection as to the income issue. I think after next year, with a full year acting as the S Corp and the LLC, we would have a very clear picture of what his income looked like for in the year of 2025. And if there is a change, he would certainly be eligible at that time to file a motion for a support review if the new structure of the company shows a change in his income that was calculated for this particular review.
Yeah. Let's go back to court and do all this stuff again. It's so ridiculous. It's so funny because, like, you know, they say it's an easy breakdown. It's an easy, numbers game. We just take yours and we divide it, and it is what it is. Until you have the judge like this, and it's like, no, I don't think he could be making more money in his business, and essentially, stuff that he's not showing on paper. But again, the wife didn't provide sufficient paperwork for her salary. She quit that job. Now she's working full time, and that also isn't submitted for in the paperwork. So it's mind blowing to me how they can kind of switch up, and it always benefits the woman. It's like, oh, well, she didn't submit hers, but it's fine. And then he wants to change it, but no, we're going to let this ride out for another year and see how it goes, and then come back to us. It's such a corrupt system, obviously because they're making money off of it, but that's mind-blowing to me.
As to the insurance, I will have friend of the court review their file and see if they can get a breakdown of the specific premium for the child in this case. And if it's not there in the paperwork that's already there, then I would indicate that Ms. Rosen needs to provide that information to the court upon the caseworker notifying her that it's not in the paperwork that they already have. And then we can do a new calculation based on that change in insurance if there is a change. As far as future insurance, and I can't make a decision there today, and I don't think I could put Ms. Rosen on the spot, but certainly it would make sense for the parties to have that discussion and for Mr. Marlott to present to her what the co-pays and premiums and everything looks like for whatever policy he's able to have. And then hopefully if that is a better policy, the parties would make a sensible decision and change that. And if that change happened,
if she doesn't want to make that change, then he shouldn't be obligated to pay, because he's clearly paying for part of her insurance as well. So if she's not willing to make that change, then she should be covering the entire thing.
also put that into a different calculation. The parties do have the right to file an objection to my recommended decision within 21 days. The matter would be heard before the judge, but we will look at making those particular changes. Any questions from front of the court?
No, sir.
All right.
Can I ask a question before we dismiss?
Sure.
I'm just, at this point, that the request was made in July, and then we had our first hearing in September. At what point, is there any type of, like, he has any obligation to provide some support as I'm managing all?
Provided you some in September.
All right, so I'm gonna cut you both off because I'm not gonna have everybody arguing back and forth. I've made my recommendation. There is an effective date on the child support calculation, but it is not an official order at this particular moment. It will be, looks like it does get backdated. It's an effective date of September 18th. I'm not sure what was in place before then. But once it goes into place, if he doesn't have credit, he'll have a very large arrears to deal with. But unfortunately, with objections, we do run into this process where things get delayed before becoming a final order.